Ladies and gentlemen, I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are looking at the tier 5. Now the tier 5 is a little bit more exciting than the tier 4. You know, the AMX 40 is just a boring tank. Like, let's be serious, it is a boring tank. Most of tier 4s nowadays are kind of boring, but you move to tier 5, you have a lot more choice to choose from. You have a lot more better tanks, like this tank right here, the T1 Heavy, one of the best tier 5s in the game. But one of the old-time best tanks in tier 5, one of the tanks that everybody used to go for, literally everybody. It was a very, very strong tank, is in fact the lowest DPM tank in tier 5, and of course that is the KV1. Now the KV1 over the years has changed massively. Like when I first started the game, the KV1 was literally one of the best tier 5s in the game. It was very, very strong. The armor profile was very, very strong, and it actually taught you a lot about the game. I mean, you could side scrape, you could hold down, you could just do anything. You could do anything. But Wargaming wanted to remove that factor, especially in the lower tiers. They wanted to make the side armor a bit more weaker, so you couldn't side scrape as well as you could. So it's not as fun as it once was. Now, to be honest, I get all my data. So when I'm looking at all the lowest DPM tanks in the game, I'm looking on Blitz stars. And in fact, when I was getting for the list for this video, it actually stated that the AMX ELC was the lowest DPM tank. But I don't think Blitz stars might have not been updated, because when I was looking at the game, in fact the KV1 has less DPM than the AMX, so which makes the KV1 the lowest DPM tank, which actually I'm very surprised. I knew it had low DPM, but I didn't think it had as low as it did. Now of course the KV1 has a few guns to choose from. You could either use it with this gun, which is the 122mm gun. Aim time, dispersion, everything, the reload, they all absolutely suck. The penetration isn't great on the tank as well, but it does have just HE. So you've got a HE shot and the heat, so it is a bit more fun playing it like that, especially when you come up against juicy targets doing a 450 alpha shot. You can literally almost clear them in one tank, but I would suggest this gun right here, the 85mm F30, so a bit higher DPM. So you got 1240 DPM with this. The aim time, of course, still isn't great. The dispersion isn't great, but the reload time is 10 seconds. Now you've got 120 AP pen, 161 APCR pen, and just 43 HE. This gun has a 200 alpha shot. But it's still a fantastic tank, like even with the lower DPM, which is why I really wanted to do this whole series, like with the high DPM tanks, or the highest DPM tanks and the lowest, because some people just always go by DPM. They look at it and think, that's shit DPM, I'm not going to buy that tank, or I'm not going to play that tank. But the KV1 is a classic example. It's never had high DPM, but it's still always been a fantastic tank. Wargaming gave it some love with some camouflages over the years as well. Now the KV1 Ghost, I think, looks absolutely incredible. It really does make this tank look good. So let's just get into some games and to see how the KV1 plays now. And again, the KV1 is one of those tanks, to be honest, all these lower tier tanks are kind of the same, like the T1 Heavy. The T1 Heavy is an amazing tank, but put that tank against tier 6s, the armor profile don't work as well as it should. And the KV1's the same. The KV1 is exactly the same. You put this in a tier 4 game, then a lot of you will be able to not penetrate. I mean, you're going to get a lot more bounces against tier 4s, but you put this tank up against tier 6s, then everyone just goes through you like butter. There is a lot of weak points in the tank, but they're weak points that never used to be. Like when I first started in the game, this was, armor-wise, absolutely incredible. So because it had that armor and it was a scary tank to come up against, it really was. The KV-1 was a very scary tank to come up against. Where back in the days where we used to drive around in Lux, you know, tier 4 tanks, Leopards as well, a KV-1 was one of those tanks you really did not want to come up against. And they were scary, even though they don't have that DPM, but they had that armor profile, and it really made the tank scary. It looks scary as well, you know, it does look scary. It looks like an absolute beast, and it was. And as I've said at the beginning of this video, like, the KV-1 is a classic example of a tank that really doesn't need DPM. Like, this is one of those tanks that it plays now fine as it is. I mean, there is nothing special about the tank now, other than that used like it, not like it used to be, but it's still one of those tanks that you can get bounces if you're angled, not as well as you used to be able to, but you still can get those bounces. You just can't rely on the armor profile as much as you used to. So the speed's okay for what it is as well. I mean, we're traveling here at 34 kilometers per hour. The HE is fine as it is. Again, nice 300 damage done to that that guy there, and then we're going to move on to the next target. But sadly, we're not going to get any more damage done. So let's move on just to one more game and see if we can mirror what we have just done that game. So here we are, we're up against some tier 6s as well. So yeah, you just, as I've already said, like, when you're up against tier 6s, you just need to be a lot more careful than you are when you're up against tier 4s. When you're up against a load of tier 4s, and again, it all depends on, just because you might be higher tier, there might only be 1 or 2 tier 4s. But if there's like, say 4 tier 4s, you can play it more aggressive than you would if there was only a couple of tier 4s, because the tier 4s will, a lot of them will struggle to penetrate you, especially if you're angled, and they will find it difficult to penetrate you. But these tier 6s, they won't struggle. Again, if you are angled, you can bounce anyone. If you're angled, you can bounce anyone out there. But since a lot of players, especially in the EU server, have started to get the KV220, the armor profile on that compared to the KV1, it is literally like, it's miles apart. The armor profile on that, it's the KV220 is basically a KV3 hull. So that's a tier 7 armor profile in tier 5. Now, a lot of you though won't have the experience of playing the KV220 or even coming up against it, only because for some reason Wargaming don't want to sell it in any other server. You know, it comes for sale on the EU server, and I don't think it comes for sale on the Asian server, but definitely not the NA server. And I don't know, it's something that I've questioned Wargaming in the past, like, why do you never sell the KV220 on the other servers? I've never understood it, and I'm never going to understand it. I've just no idea. But it'll be nice for Wargaming to sell that tank on other servers. It is literally an upgraded KV1 with much better armor profile. It doesn't have better pen. I mean, the penetration on the KV220 really is not strong at all. And when you get guys like this coming at you, guys like this is all we're going to do. So, and again, we don't bounce much. The penetration, as you can see, isn't the greatest, and it struggles more now than it used to. But for the lowest DPM tank in tier 5, it really isn't that bad, especially if you're just starting out in Blitz. If you're just starting out in Blitz, the KV1 is still a decent tank to start. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Was you surprised that the KV1 is the lowest DPM tank? Leave a comment down below. But for now, I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm meadsy69, and I will catch you all soon. Bye-bye. With